Welcome to Makeshift Movie Theater, the show where we try to expand our minds and culture by watching iconic movies as they were meant to be, in a theater. Of course, we don't have a theater, but with a bedsheet, a projector, and a friend or two, we got the next best thing. Now tonight's movie was Heat, starring Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, among many, many more.
It's got a great cast. It's one of those movies where if it didn't have the cast it did, it wouldn't have been as well as it was.
He's really good. Al Pacino worked really well doing his Al Pacino thing where he just screams and...
It's got a big ass!
Great ass!
Great ass!
So the movie begins, and we're in the middle of a heist. Masked men are attempting to take down an armored truck, which they are successful at.
It was one of those heists, like the one at the beginning with the armored car, that feasibly people could pull off.
Right.
You know.
It wasn't explosions everywhere.
Yeah, it wasn't like super movie-fied.
That same night, right?
Right.
Al Pacino shows up. He's the lead detective on the case. And he sees these three gunned-down security officers and decides this is a pretty professional crew. On the other side of that coin, the one that killed the security guards was this hothead in De Niro's crew that he was going to kill. De Niro was going to kill him, right? It's a pretty good movie.
It's one of those movies that very much has influenced several other things.
Which includes?
Dark Knight Rises. Dark Knight, the one with the Joker. Most definitely. It's really cops and robbers, and that is what made it so good. The movie is on a biasly a cop movie.
Yeah, Pacino does this good job just being this erratic cop. He just runs around and screams at people. Like, there's this great scene where he's standing in his house, and he just found out that his wife slept with another man. And he doesn't freak out. He just starts screaming about his TV and how he can't watch it. And that's it. The core movie's message seems to be worlds colliding, I would say. Al Pacino can't really find himself a satisfying relationship because of his job. These two elements that make him up, he can't seem to make
coexist.
Right. De Niro, I would say, was the biggest victim of this because he was trying so hard to pull off all these jobs to create an ideal life for himself and some sort of mate. I guess her name was Edie in this movie.
Yeah, I guess.
But no matter how hard he tried, it just didn't happen for him.
Yeah, and I think that goes along with the message that stuff like Scarface and The Godfather and being a criminal fucking sucks. Like, people who are always like, oh yeah, having a gangster lifestyle would be awesome, all the money, and the cops after you.
It's not worth it.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
So, the director of this movie is Michael Mann. I could have sworn in the beginning of this movie it looked exactly like a Michael Bay film.
It did kind of start a little like a edgier Bad Boys.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
What I was getting.
It had a feeling to it.
And then there was one part where the guy's about to shoot the security guards, and it pans from one side of him, or it sort of swings around him, and that felt very Michael Bay-ish. You know, he does that in all his movies where it's this epic sort of
panning,
just going around the characters. It felt like Robert De Niro and Al Pacino were the same person. They just happened to have two different day jobs, but they were relating to each other, especially in that diner scene.
That I found interesting because it took me a couple seconds to realize that Pacino they knew what was going on the whole time. Robert De Niro's got the camera and he's,
right.
And then, they used all the cop resources to kind of throw it back on the guys, and he found him and pulled him over, and instead of arresting him...
But go get coffee.
Let's go get coffee, yeah, and the whole thing was incredibly tense, you're right.
Hank Azaria, by the way, is in this movie.
The only serious thing either of us have ever seen him in.
Yeah, all I can picture him in is, like, the birdcage. He's like the houseboy that falls over when he puts on...
They make me fall.
Yeah. The climax was well worth it. That's what I wrote down. The climax is well worth it. The problem is, the climax happens about 45 minutes before the end. Like, this movie is crazy long.
They literally could have chopped out most of after the heist. They could have literally chopped out most of that and then had the same movie.
It just keeps dragging at that point. You're like, yeah, I'm ready for this movie to end. Like, this is a good scene. I feel satisfied. And then you have to sit through another 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Val Kilmer's acting.
It's just so dry.
It's really dry.
Really, really dry. Like, even in Batman Forever, like, he just has this... Whenever he tries to give a spiel or a monologue, it's monotone the whole freaking way.
For me, the sun rises and sets with her, man.
Bland, bland, bland. Gets real complicated at the end. Oh, now the phone call. The phone call that Al Pacino is making to his subordinate about who he needs to talk to, who's doing what, and it's basically a recap for the audience.
Right.
And he's just dropping names and spots and things they're doing, and I halfway through went,
What?
You Benny has reformed his wayward life. Apparently, Neil got sold out to us by this cowboy named Waingro, money launderer named Van Sant, named Jameson.
It doesn't help that this movie really doesn't establish characters.
yeah, it establishes a couple. Like,
Yeah.
Al Pacino and Robert De Niro were really fleshed out well.
That's kind of where that ends, honestly.
But then they start throwing in more supplementary characters until you're like, wait, which one is he again?
Is he the black guy that's with her?
Yeah,
in
the black guy
the
who
cop.
got...
Anyway, the
Oh, I
cop
was
black guy.
thinking of the other guy that just showed up mid-movie.
He was supposed to be a driver, and as soon as he bit the dust in the
He was like... Yeah, he just sort of showed up because the plot needed a driver.
yeah, well, the way they introduced him kind of was like, oh, well, he's trying to get his life together. He's got this wife or girlfriend, or it was his girlfriend, right, or something.
Something.
They introduced her, or him and her, and you're like, this is out of fucking nowhere.
It felt very left field.
And then it didn't go anywhere but a bullet in the face during a car chase. Like, that's an awful... It has 10 minutes that we could have used with that.
Especially with a 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
Robert De Niro is spouting about how you need to be able to leave something in 30 seconds.
It's done. Leave
That's it.
Yeah.
Never have anything in your life that you can't drop in 30 seconds.
Right.
And he says that.
It's a couple times.
Yeah,
Couple
2 or 3 times. In most of these kind of movies, in these cops versus the bad guy kind of movies, the bad guy loses because he always breaks his own rule.
And I think he kind of did to a point. Because he could have left well enough alone and then let Winkrow staying in the hotel or whatever. Could have just fucking left it, been in Rio with, the
Edie.
girl. Yeah, whatever her name is.
And even with the girl, Edie, that he was courting at the time, she wasn't even sure about him at the end. She didn't even know if she wanted to be with him. She tries to run away from him at one point, and he latches on to her so hard.
It was a little creepy, actually. Yeah. I was like, I would have fucking been out, like just gone. Mm-hmm. And she stayed for some reason, which I don't understand, like the logic behind that, like Stockholm syndrome or something.
It could be, yeah, something like that. That was Heat. Would you recommend it?
I would. I think it's one of those movies. It's kind of like The Godfather. If you don't have an afternoon to set aside and actually enjoy the movie and pay attention to it, I would. It's not going to make good background noise.
I also would recommend it. It was pretty good. I liked it a lot. Anyway, that was Heat, and that's our show. I'd like to thank Bob for being here with us. I, of course, am your host, Mike. And we hope you have a good afternoon or evening or whatever. Just
make sure it's good.
Yeah, be sure it's good.